In our first story, former Cocoa Board Chief Executive Stephen Kwabena Opuni will from March 23 be facing state prosecutors in court over charges of causing financial loss to the state to the tune of 2.1 billion cedis. Dr. Opuni is charged alongside CEO of Agriculture Ghana Limited, Alhaji Seydou Agongo, also the owner of the Class Media Group, said to have defrauded the state by false pretense in 3 contracts awarded him for the supply of fertilizers to cocoa farmers. The latest court action by the Attorney General brings to 2 the cases involving former top government officials who served under the past NDC government, dragged to court over various offences. There is more in the following report.
The former Cocoa Board boss has since February 2017 been on the radar of officers of the Economic and Organised Crime Office, EOCO. In February 2017, Mr. Opuni's assets were frozen by EOCO, with sources within the office confirming a probe of all contracts entered during his tenure under scrutiny. In the build-up to the 2016 elections, some spokespersons of the then opposition MPP leveled various allegations against the Cocoa Board CEO, claiming he had run down the cocoa sector through the award of questionable contracts. It therefore came as no surprise when barely a week after President Akufo-Addo was sworn in, Mr. Opuni was asked to proceed on leave, given only 24-hour notice to leave office. The charge sheet filed at the Accra High Court by Chief State Attorney Evelyn Kilson has CEO of Agriculture Ghana Limited, Alhaji Seydou Agongo, and the former Cocoa Board CEO slapped the 27 counts of various charges. They range from abatement of crime, namely defrauding by false pretense, willfully causing financial loss to the state, contravention of Public Procurement Act, corruption of public officer, money laundering, manufacturing of fertilizer without registration, and selling misbranded fertilizer. Alhaji Agongo's company, Agriculture Ghana Limited, is also joined to the suit. The state claims from January 2014, Mr. Opuni conspired with Seydou Agongo and Agriculture Ghana Limited to secure a 43.1 million Ghana cedis fertilizer contract, even though they were well aware the company was in no position to execute the contract. The 3 other contracts given out in the 3 farming seasons from 2014 to 2016 were also scrutinized. One of the contracts was worth 75.3 million cedis, which later ballooned to 98.9 million cedis. This brings the total amount of payment to 2.17 billion cedis in 3 years, sums paid by a Cocoa Board, which in 2016, according to the state. The 2 are expected to make their first appearance in court on March 23, where their pleas will be taken by the court.
Well, in a related development, MP for Ningo Pram Sam George has described as frivolous the charges brought against the former chief executive of Cocoa Board, Stephen Opuni. He describes the suit as a deliberate attempt by government to shift focus from the bust saga.
As usual, this is a government of distractions. This is a government that is engaged in shifting the goalpost. These charges against Dr. Opuni, as far as I'm aware and I'm concerned, are frivolous, would not stand in any competent court of jurisdiction. I mean, this is a government that is being saddled with daily accusations of gross incompetence and corruption. As we speak, the media is awash with the allegations of corruption at bust, the umpteenth time of allegations of corruption at bust, which the president has always brushed under the carpet because he's been warned by my colleague member of parliament, Honorable Kennedy Japan, that if he touches the gentleman at bust, he's going to spill the beans. And so even with this allegation of the discounted sale of petroleum products, 1.8 million barrels of petroleum products to an unregistered company yet again, the president is actually not interested in it. And what do you see? You see them trying to deflect and move the attention of the Ghanaian people away from the hardship and the corruption of this government and file these frivolous charges against Dr. Opuni. I mean, the charges are whimsical, to say the least. You see, it is one thing to allege. It's taking them 15 months to be able to make an allegation. Let's see how long it will take them to prove the case in court. Because you see, Dr. Opuni has been one of the major targets of this government from the onset. They've tried him already in the media before even going to court. But as far as I'm concerned, this is yet another attempt to divert attention from the dwindling fortunes of this government in the cocoa sector.
Now, the national organizer of the opposition National Democratic Congress has been sharing similar sentiment. He's been speaking on Joy FM, but we also have another wing of the NDC, that's the Ashanti Region chapter of the opposition National Democratic Congress. They've also waded into this, and they're charging the president to focus. They said they'd saying the president should focus on dealing with corruption allegations in his government and not witch hunt political opponents. In a statement, the Regional Secretary Raymond Tando said the party is not surprised at the charges of causing financial loss to the state brought against the former Ghana Cocoa Board CEO, Dr. Stephen Opuni. And they go on to say he's even more surprised that government finds no need to deal with corruption allegations, destroying its public integrity and credibility, but rather goes out of its way to persecute political opponents. While we are not surprised by this development, we are appalled by the exceptional determination of the government to destroy the reputation of a man who has labored to transform the cocoa sector in Ghana. We believe Dr. Stephen Opuni is a victim of a growing political culture of hounding predecessors to justify campaign claims of corruption. He added, the Ashanti Regional Chapter said it is confident Dr. Opuni will be exonerated eventually, knowing his meticulousness and genuine commitment to the development of Ghana. And they put that out in a press release which is available on myjoyonline.com. Now, questions of conflict of interest are being raised about the award of 11 contracts to the sister-in-law of the Chief Executive of the National Lotteries Authority, Kofi Osei-Ameyao. The CEO is said to have approved the contract worth more than 500,000 cedis to Rama Hassan of Ram's Kitchen to supply end-of-year packages. Anti-Graft Coalition Corruption Watch, which uncovered the questionable contracts, says all 11 of them, including contracts for the supply of 1,000 bags of rice, canned drinks, corned beef, and tinned tomatoes, were dated November 29, 2017. The sister-in-law of the NLA boss, Kofi Osei-Ameyao, has dismissed claims that she got contracts from the authority because of a relationship with the head, explaining she went through due process to secure them. There's more in the following Corruption Watch report.
Documents in possession of Corruption Watch indicate that the National Lottery Authority awarded 11 contracts worth 500,000 cedis to Ram's Kitchen to supply and distribute end-of-year packages. Ram's Kitchen is owned by the sister-in-law of Kofi Osei-Ameyao, Rama Hassan. All the local purchase orders prepared by the Administrative and Human Resource Department of the NLA bear the same date, 29th November 2017. Procurement expert Godfred Ewu expresses concern separate local purchasing orders were prepared on similar items for a single supplier, adding it could have been reasonable if multiple suppliers were involved. Separate local purchase orders were prepared for rice that was bought by Ram's Kitchen. Same was done for beverage drinks. On the document, speaking to Corruption Watch in an interview, Rama Hassan dismissed suggestions she got the contract because of her relationship with Osei-Ameyao, arguing that she went through due process to secure the contract to supply and distribute the items.
You know, I heard about this thing for Christmas. I applied for it. I went through all the process and I was given. So I gave them my prices. I went around the city, looked for warehouses, get them my prices, and then some other people this, and then there's nothing showing that because I'm Rama or I'm this, and I got the contract signed. To me, to the best of my knowledge, that was it.
Checks at the Public Procurement Authority reveal that the Director General of the NLA, as the head of the entity, authorized to approve all contracts below the threshold of 100,000 cedis. All the 11 contracts fell below this threshold, with the highest amount being 99,470 cedis. But the total figure amounts to 579,576 cedis. If the purchases had been made together, it would have pushed the threshold beyond the approval threshold of the Director General, which would have led him to seek approval from the Entity Tender Committee. Mr. Kofi Osei-Ameyao has declined to be interviewed by Corruption Watch, except to say he did nothing wrong. Checks by Corruption Watch reveal that Ram's Kitchen has ceased operations 3 months after executing the NLA contract.
Now, beyond the story as we have it so far, Joy News is learning the Ram's Kitchen ceased operating 3 months after executing the NLA contract. Now, in a reaction on City FM, the NLA chief executive defended the award of the contracts to his sister-in-law and suggested the law does not forbid a relative of a public office holder from doing business. Now, here are his direct quotes, and it's available at my Joy Online. There's a story there. It says, "I don't preside over the process of procurement. People just go around and make preposterous allegations. It is about time Ghanaians stop all this hullabaloo about who is a relative and who is not a relative. If a company bids for a project competitively and somebody wins, I don't think it is conflict of interest. People don't even understand what conflict of interest means," he stressed. A procurement expert, Godfrey Ewu, has raised concerns that separate purchasing orders were made for food items from a single supplier. He believes it would have been reasonable if multiple suppliers were involved. Now we're going back to our very first story, which has to do with the former chief executive of the Ghana Cocoa Board being charged with 27 counts of causing financial loss to the state. I've been joined in the studio by Evan Spencer, who has been going through the writ filed by the Attorney General's Department, and he's going to be throwing a bit more light on it. Indeed, we have talked about the suit itself as put out by the Attorney General's Department, but I'd like you to help us give us some background to these two individuals who have been mentioned in this suit. First of all, the former Cocoa Board chief executive. He is somebody who, as we've heard the NDC minority say in Parliament, that he has been, quote unquote, being on the watch or on the hunt the NPP has targeted him for a while now.
For a start, he is the first public officer appointed by John Dramani Mahama to be sacked by the NPP administration when they took office. A letter was written to him in the early days of the Nana Addo administration in January when they took over, asking him, it gave him 24 hours to pack out of the office. That's how he started. And then subsequent to that, he then became embroiled in the controversy where Iyoko had to interrogate him for hours, and we're told up to 9 hours, on these allegations that now has crystallized into charges. And his troubles had been going on for a while, as far back as 2016, when John Dramani Mahama himself was there. The cocoa farmers, the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, and the General Agricultural Workers Union jointly petitioned not only John Dramani Mahama, but also a number of other top government officials, including the Agric and Finance ministers, to investigate the gentleman, Dr. Puni. And the allegations in the petitions then, in fact, which subsequently addressed a press conference and put out, is that he was selling cocoa beans that had been separated from the bulk that had been produced by cocoa farmers. And these cocoa beans, they allege, were tagged as substandard, so to speak. But it was yet sold off, and $10 million was made out of it, allegedly. But it wasn't accounted for. That amount wasn't accounted for because substandard is not part of the premium cocoa, and yet had been sold off. The allegations, then the petitions was that Dr. Puni sold it off without any proper accounting of that, and they wanted him probed for it. And today I've spoken to Mr. Kingsley Nkansa, who used to be the General Secretary of GAU, the General Agricultural Workers Union, on this matter, who gave me an update that yes, they petitioned the President, then John Dramani Mahama, and the ministers, but nothing happened. In fact, he said they only met John Mahama at one of the May Day events and promised them that something will be done, but since then nothing has happened. So that's as far back that this goes in terms of opening himself.
Right, and then we also remember that he had issues when he was at the FDA, and he had to leave the FDA, and there were some runnings with another private company.
Yes.
So that was also another issue, but that really didn't
plus
have
last year, when the new Cocoa Board executives took over, they abrogated a contract worth more than 200 million cedis that he had signed off to the same businessman who is now caught up in the High Court suit together with Opuni. They abrogated, they cancelled the contract, 200, because, and today I've spoken to Cocoa Board again, and they had indicated that in fact that contract, part of that contract is now found its way into the court suit.
Right.
But we're also learning tonight that the businessman in question, there were other contracts that he was supposed to deliver on with Cocoa Board for cocoa farmers, and those two other contracts, he's countersued Cocoa Board on that.
Okay.
And he's dragged Cocoa Board for some arbitration of assault on the cancellation, and Cocoa Board is currently in court with him on that.
So now this Alhaji Seydou Agongo, what do we know about him?
So he is, on this case, he is the owner of the Agricult, you know, but popularly you know him as the owner of Class FM. And Class FM has a sister station, also very popular in the local, in the tree station, Accra FM. So he owns a media chain. That's him. But if you recall the JIDA scandals, the YEA scandals, then he was a CEO of a company called Zira Group of Companies. And the Zira Group of Companies executed one of the modules, which was the road maintenance module, which was cited as part of the scandal as having engaged in some deals that were questionable, but it wasn't one of the major plugs. But his business then was part of that. In fact, I've been listening to him today, an interview he granted a Class FM 3 years ago, I think, detailing how he became a businessman and how he had his eye on the ball. His life story and how he formed the Zira Group of Companies. He has a chain of businesses from his own account. Pharmaceuticals, in fact, he started in rice importation. And he made a lot of money in rice importation. He went into pharmaceuticals, then he did the Zira Group of Companies. Obviously, he did agriculture as well because he was dealing in all these issues with Cocoa Board. And then he had a chain of media organizations as well. So that's the man, Seydou Agongo.
All right. Thank you very much, Evans Mensah. We'll leave it here. We're taking a break here on Joy News Prime. But still ahead in the bulletin, Ashamang MP calls for the scrapping of the Procurement Ministry after the sector minister parried questions directed to her about the award of a contract for the procurement of some 1,800 vehicles.
They are running away from something. Otherwise, the minister responsible for procurement, public procurement, not private procurement, not procurement under the presidency, public, underlining word is public.
We have that story and more coming up after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. Member of Parliament for Ashamang, Ernest Nogbe, is calling for the scrapping of the Procurement Ministry amidst claims that Minister Sarah Adwoa-Safo has shown gross incompetence. This comes after the minister parried procurement-related questions in Parliament Wednesday. Adwoa-Safo, who is also the Deputy Majority Leader, was on the floor to answer questions in relation to the procurement method adopted by the Microfinance and Small Loan Centre, Massloc, in awarding a contract worth 28.8 million cedis to Dextro Impex to supply 1,800 vehicles. In answer to the question posed by the Ashamang MP, Adwoa-Safo stated that her office does not have the locus to answer such questions and asked that they be directed to the Ministry of Finance.
Public Procurement Authority, which is the PPA, is the regulatory body charged with the mandate of granting approvals and ensuring compliance with all relevant procurement rules and processes. The PPA, as an agency legally placed under the Ministry of Finance. Mr. Speaker, per the definition section of the Public Procurement Act 2003, Act 663, and Act 914 as amended, a minister is defined, Mr. Speaker. A minister means the minister responsible for finance. Mr. Speaker, I take it again. Minister is defined as minister means minister responsible for finance. Hence, in accordance with our standing orders, Order 62 of this House, Mr. Speaker, the question ought to be directed to the Ministry of Finance. Thank you.
But Ashamang MP, in an interview, my colleague Kwesi Parker-Wilson said the answers smacked of incompetence.
If you cannot answer questions pertaining to public procurement, you realize that I asked a follow-up question, whether she is a public she's responsible for public procurement or she's responsible for procurement at the presidency. Do you understand that? Otherwise, she has to answer this question. And don't forget, Massloc is under the office of the president. If Massloc is under the office of the president, who is supposed to answer the question? Even if, let me admit her argument that she's responsible, she's to advise the president on procurement policies and strategies. Yeah. Let me just admit that that is her role. What about the Massloc that is under the presidency? Who is supposed to answer questions to that effect? Do you understand that? Who is supposed to answer questions? She has to answer those questions. But she's trying, that means that something is fishy. They are running away from something. Otherwise, the minister responsible for procurement, public procurement, not private procurement, not procurement under the presidency, public, underlining word is public. She has to answer those questions.
Right, so in one other story, also this time again available on myjoyonline.com, in relation to this questionable contract, or the controversial contract, it has emerged Microfinance and Small Scale Loan Center, Massloc, cancelled this controversial contract, 28.8 million CD contract, a month after it awarded it to a private company, Dextro Impex. MyJoyOnline.com has learned the contract for the supply of 1,800 vehicles was terminated in August last year, just a month after it was awarded. In a letter intercepted by MyJoyOnline.com dated October 12, 2017, Massloc CEO Stephen Amwa said that the decision to abrogate the contract was to afford the center the opportunity to review all procedures in acquisition of the vehicles. And so that's the update that we have on this particular contract that was put to the procurement minister in Parliament on Wednesday. The Anti-Galamsey Task Force Operation Vanguard says it will have no choice but to shoot and kill illegal miners if they receive such an order. Squadron leader Omane Eje tells Joy News at the moment they are only allowed to arrest illegal miners and seize their equipment or kill them. The task force has arrested 7 Chinese and 20 Ghanaian illegal miners in Brofudru and Bremang in the central region. Large quantities of cyanide used by the miners for their illegal operations were also discovered in large quantities. There are fears the dangerous chemicals may have contaminated river bodies in the area. The situation has prompted the Operation Vanguard team to invite the Environmental Protection Agency for further investigations. Insure FM's Ohim Interior has been speaking with the squadron leader of the Operation Vanguard Task Force, Omanije.
From what our higher authority, that is the CDS and the IGP, have told us, we are not supposed to shoot and kill them. So until when we receive any other directives to shoot and kill them, then we will go ahead and shoot them and kill them.
Since you were outdoors, what are some of the successes you have chalked and what are some of the difficulties you have faced as far as your work is concerned?
Since we were inserted into the operation, we have made about 1,104 arrests. And for the excavators, we have about 186, which have been seized to the assemblies. But when we talk about excavators which have been immobilized, that's when we remove the control box and others. That one we have 280. When we talk about water pumping machines which has been immobilized or destroyed, we have done 836. And the ones we have seized is about 388. For vehicles, we have 64 vehicles, motorbikes, 58. And when it comes to arms and ammunition, for arms, we have 94 arms have been seized, and the ammunition is about 2,270. And for dynamites, you know what dynamites can be used for. That one we have about 14.
Now, former Minister of Lands and Natural Resources Alhaji Nusaf Hussaini has described First Deputy Speaker Joe Sewusu's shoot-to-kill pronouncement in Parliament on Tuesday as reckless, with tendencies to impugn Parliament's integrity. Joe Sewusu charged members of the Operation Vanguard team to shoot any illegal miner on site to serve as a deterrent to others. He re-emphasized this statement on Tuesday on the floor of the House. The former Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Nusaf Hussaini, however, disagrees.
The Deputy Speaker, First Deputy Speaker, is entitled to his own views. He could make it on other platforms. but not while sitting in the seat as a first deputy speaker in Parliament. Because the very core of our existence as Parliament is to make laws for the smooth administration of this country. We are the champions of the bastions of the protection of the liberties and freedoms of individuals. What he could have done, he's entitled to his view. What he could have done neatly was for him to call upon the minister to bring back the legislation on the mines and minerals. The Minerals Act, for an amendment to make the punishment, sanctions stiffer and deterrent, and could advocate for a death sentence. If the sanctions are not deterrent enough, you don't advocate a shoot to kill, which is descending into impunity, but you advocate for a review of the law. And that is my worry.
We're taking a break here on Joy News, trying to bring you business. And in business, Institute of Energy Security dismisses Bosch's position that it did not err by selling a parcel of crude oil to an unlicensed energy company. Stay tuned, we have that coming up, but also one other story that you can expect in the bulletin. Conflict linked with the death of 6 persons in the Volta region town of Akapo Copper said to have contained a pesticide that could kill when ingested. That's the results of the lab test done by the Food and Drugs Authority. We have that coming up after the break.
Hello, good evening to you. Time now for business. Now, the bulk oil storage and transportation company Bosch, as part of its defense on Thursday against some claims by COPEC, noted it did no wrong by selling a portion of some crude oil to an unlicensed foreign company, BB Energy. Bosch also stated that it could not have continued to store the amount of fuel in question as it could affect the value. Here's a recap of what was said about the sale.
There's another allegation he raised, that the company was unlicensed. Before I answer that, let me ask you, if any of you buy product to Côte d'Ivoire, to any refinery, anywhere, that you want to refine your products, do you need a license of that country before you can refine your product? I don't think you do. If you buy a product and send it to Côte d'Ivoire to go and refine the product in their refinery, you don't need to register there before you can get your product refined. Tor can have crude from anywhere and they'll refine. Any supplier who will bring crude to Tor doesn't need a license in Ghana before he can get his product refined at all. So that is a total display of ignorance in the industry.
But in a rebuttal, Principal Research Officer of the Institute of Energy Security, IAS, Richmond Roxon, says the head of field trade at Bosch got it all wrong. Richmond was sharing his thoughts on the marketplace.
Before any company trade, the company should have the requisite license from the National Petroleum Authority. So, we find it quite interesting and strange that Bosch was said that they can trade with any company that they want at any point in time. At least the regulator in the industry, National Petroleum Authority. So if anything, you should be able to have the list of certified companies or companies in good standards where you can trade with them. So it would have been easier if they had written to NPA for NPA to furnish them with the details whether or not these companies have been registered before trading with them. But to say that you have done your trading with them, if there are regulatory issues, it's the NPA that must handle it, when you could have just written to MPA, get their feedback before you trade. We find it quite unfortunate, but definitely you should be able to have a license before you can trade whatever category you decide to trade in.
Now, in other news, the ECG has released a briefing on the tariff review, which is supposed to take effect from tomorrow. Now, George Biafi has joined me in the studio to give us some more details on this particular briefing. Why was it necessary if we having the effects taken tomorrow?
Well, it's interesting because ECG in this press engagement confirmed that yes, of course, the reduction is effective April 15. But if you should walk into a shop and buy, you wouldn't actually feel that impact of that reduction. Now, they are explaining to us that per their billing structure, it might be difficult to actually implement the reduction on the 15th of March. But rather, what was going to happen is that when you go again, April 1, to do another purchase, what you have purchased already will be even out for that reduction to be expected. So in terms of the real reduction taking effect, it will take effect from April 1, 2018, Yafe.
All right, and what is the breakdown that you have?
Well, Yafe, from what I have here, it looks like for the residential users, now the more that you consume, the more that you benefit. So for those who are within the range of 1 to 5 kilowatts per hour, you're looking at enjoying somewhere around 14 to about 10% reduction. I mean, if you look at it, if you're consuming about 301 to about 300, you benefit around 16 to 17% reduction. So if you look at the structure, the more you consume, the more reduction you experience. So if you're just doing little, it means that you won't witness that much. And we'll get most details of that numbers on my journal line for those who want to read and look at the details. But what if you go through the reckoner or the details is saying that the more you consume, the more reduction that you enjoy as a consumer.
Quickly, but do you have any information on non-residential users?
So for non-residential users as well, who might necessarily be businesses, you're looking at a situation where if you consume from 1 to 50, you're doing about maybe just about 2% of that one. If you're also doing about 300 megawatts or kilowatts per hour, you're looking at around 24% reduction. So as we said earlier on, as ECG or PRC disclosed earlier on, you're looking at up to 30% reduction. And it looks like it's cutting across. That the more you consume, the more you benefit in terms of this reduction, in terms of kilowatt per hour.
Thank you very much, George,
for your
time. And of course, we'll bring you details in our subsequent bulletins on business. Now, the continuous growth in mobile penetration has been attributed to the drop in prices of smartphones. According to a recent mobile report by Jumia Ghana, mobile phone penetration is likely to hit 40 million subscriptions by 2020. Co-CEO of Jumia Ghana, or Udusanya, says the trend is partly driven by the affordability of smartphones. He was speaking to Joy Business at the launch of the Jumia Mobile Report 2018. Sheila Tamaklo reports.
According to the report, Ghana is one of Africa's largest mobile markets with about 34.57 million subscribers. This figure is, however, expected to increase over time and hit about 40 million subscribers by 2020. Co-CEO of Jumia says the general drop in prices of smartphones is one of the main drivers for this trend.
One thing is price of smartphones. I think it's actually the major thing. From the report that I shared, between 2014 and 2017, the prices of smartphones have come down from an average of $219 to $65. So it's more affordable to own a smartphone today, and that's really the key driver for the penetration of smartphones.
The head of marketing for MTN on his part advised online retail shops to build consumer trust to boost the adoption of e-transactions.
People would have to grow in confidence on items that they purchase online. If I'm very confident in what I'm buying by way of the quality of the item, ensuring that I get actually what I wanted and all that, then I feel comfortable paying before the item arrives. So what we have to do is build that confidence in people, and then they would feel comfortable paying through the mobile money.
According to the mobile report, although cash transactions are still high, mobile payments is also strongly catching on.
Now, inflation for the month of February 2018 experienced an increase to record 10.6% as compared with the rate for January. The rate indicates prices of goods and services went up year on year between the period of February 2017 and February 2018. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, Upper West Region, Bonahafo, Greater Accra and Ashanti regions recorded the rates higher than the national average. Government statistician Banwadi explains to journalists at a press conference.
The rate went up by 0.3 percentage points as compared with the figure for January, which was 10.3%. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, this is a measurement of the change over time in the general price level of goods and services that households acquired for purpose of consumption. This should mean that the rate of increase in general price levels of goods and services went up marginally compared to that of January this year. Acting Government Statistician Banwadie explains the major factors for the minimal increase in the rate.
We have the communication group. Again, inflation went up in this group. We have education, we have housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels, all recording increases in the inflation rate. And we also had the inflation rates in the food and non-alcoholic beverage group also going up. All these items recorded increases in their inflation, and this pushed up the overall inflation rate to 10.6%. But having said that, the underlying cause was due mainly to one, base drift effects, and the slight increases that were recorded in the prices for fuel in February.
On the regional figures, the Upper West, Bono Hafo, Greater Accra and Ashanti regions recorded rates higher than the national average.
Upper West region recorded the highest year-on-year inflation rate of 11.7%, followed by Bono Hafo region with a rate of 11.4%. while the Upper East region recorded the lowest year-on-year inflation rate of 8.1% in February 2018.
The non-food group recorded a year-on-year inflation of 12.2% compared with 12% recorded in January, whilst the food and non-alcoholic beverages group went up by 0.4% to record 7.2%. These also confirm earlier reports by Joy Business that the prices of foods on the market experienced an increase over the 2018 first quarter results.
And that's all in business for now. For more business news updates, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji Riafi. Have a good evening.
Now, a toxicology test by the Food and Drugs Authority, FDA, has revealed the presence of a very toxic substance in samples of corn flour retrieved from Akakpo copper in the Volta region, where 6 people died after eating a local dish, banku and okra soup. A statement from the FDA indicates that toxic substance chlorpyrifos, which is found in pesticides, can cause death when ingested. 8 members of 2 families who ate meals made with the contaminated corn flour early this month were rushed to the hospital, but 6 of them lost their lives. 1 person is still in hospital. 1 other participant in the meals made from the said corn flour, a child, was not affected. The statement signed by the acting chief executive of the FDA, Delise Darko, further states that the corn mill from which the corn dough was sourced has been closed and that the situation is under control. The findings of the FDA have been forwarded to the Public Health Directorate of the Ghana Health Service for further action. Now, I'm joined on the phone line now by District Chief Executive of South Tong, Emmanuel Agama. Akakpo copper falls within his area. Well, he's joined me on the line. Hello, sir. Now, what do you make of the findings of the FDA?
Good evening to you and all viewers on your station. I had a call from the doctor. He was in the theater throughout today. And he called me that he has received the report. And I'm here to take it. I was at the hospital, but I was in the ward. So I couldn't get hold of the report. But before tomorrow morning, I hope I will get a report and summon my security chiefs for the way forward.
All right. The crux of the report is that the corn flour that was used in the preparation of these meals contained a pesticide. And this pesticide they're talking about, they say that it can kill if ingested, as in if it goes into the human body. Will that suffice for you? Because I recall you saying that this isn't the first time it has happened, and you think that there may be somebody who's behind all of this.
Yes. In the first place, I'm disappointed the way the FDA is handling this case. We were thinking it should not be released into the public domain. We were waiting for the reports for the police to take action. But because of the issue of their reports being made to the public, there may be some culprits that will be arrested. They will have the information, and will be getting difficult in arresting them. Moreover, as I said earlier, this is not the first time this case is happening. And I came into office, and with this case, I was briefed that there were similar incidents. There was a time fecal matter was even poured in the water of one of the inhabitants. So I think we have to get to the root cause of all this happening.
All right.
And,
now, one other thing the FDA indicated was that the core mill where this incident happened has been closed down. Can you confirm that for us?
Yes, it has been closed down by the police for further investigations after their report has been released.
All right. Now, we know the one other person who ate the meal is in hospital. Can you give us any updates on that person's situation?
Yes, that is the father, the corn miller himself. Though he's alive, the chemical has some effects on his organs. So the health authorities are doing further tests to know the way forward. We are waiting on what decisions they have to take.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Agama. Emmanuel Agama is DC for South Tongue, and he was joining us on the FDA, speaking to us about the FDA's reports on what they found out. Apparently, there was a pesticide that was contained in the corn flour that was used in the preparation of the meals that led to the deaths of about 6 people at Akakpo, Copper, in the Volta region. Moving on, an association called the Mobile Money Agents Advocacy Group is calling for protection for mobile money merchants in the country. Their concern comes on the back of the broad daylight robbery of a mobile money merchant on Tuesday at Taifa in Accra. We have that story coming up later on in the bulletin station. President Akufo-Addo says his government is determined to find a permanent solution to activities of nomadic herdsmen in the country. The activities in parts of the Ashanti and Eastern regions have continued to pose a threat to the security of inhabitants after lives and properties were lost through violent clashes. There have been calls to drive the nomadic herdsmen out of the country, but government is rather looking at controlling their grazing activities. The Council of Fulani Herdsmen in Ghana met the president on Wednesday to agree on ways to deal with the menace. President of the Council, Idrisu Mohammed Bengle, says his side is ready to form a task force to arrest their own whose activities threaten the security of the country.
These activities have portrayed the Fulani in a very negative light, thus making it look like the Fulani community is in conflict with Mother Ghana. Sometimes the media reportage on suspected criminal activities and the perpetrators of such mentioned by their names, while those suspected to be Fulanis are mentioned by their tribe instead of their names. This is a very source of worry to us. It is in this vein that we, as the National Council of Fulani Chiefs, representing the Fulani ethnic groupings in Ghana, avail ourselves to help in resolving this nagging issue. We are not here to condone or defend the actions of anybody, but happily make ourselves available for consultations with your government and other stakeholders in providing a lasting solution to this recurring nomadic menace. We will be more than ready for constructive dialogue to bring about peaceful coexistence, and also ready to facilitate or work with national law enforcement agencies to investigate and bring to justice any miscreants within our midst. The National Council of Fulani Chiefs intend to set up, with the approval of government, task forces in the affected regions to help arrest and hand over to the security agencies for prosecution all Fulanis suspected of having committed any criminal offenses or breached the directives to confine their cattle in kraals.
President Akufo-Addo meanwhile says government is considering constructing a ranch to monitor and control activities of the nomadic herdsmen. According to him, the economic value associated with their business makes it necessary for government to regularize the activities.
The Fulani Herdsmen Association in Ghana, their president is a member of this committee that is working with the minister, under the Minister of Agriculture. The joint committee seeing how we can work to make sure that these kraals, these ranches are built quickly and that they work, and all that is associated. I would like one or two of you to be on that committee. Like one or two of the chiefs, you decide for yourself who you want. But I think at least one, if not two, members of your community to be on this committee. Then everybody is there. The herdsmen are there, you are there, government is there. We have a cooperative little group that can then go about making sure that in future we have peace. This industry, if all of us, we put our mind to it, it's a big industry for Ghana. Cattle ranching. There's a lot of money in it for everybody, for the ranchers, for the herdsmen, for the people working in it, if we organize ourselves well. And that is why we want to start with the ranchers, so that we have secure places for grazing for the cattle. They have access to water, to feed, medical assistance. All of that will be part and parcel of the thing. And if we are able to begin to develop in this way, very soon, the meat industry that will develop out of there with Ghana will bring a lot of jobs and wealth to a lot of people in Ghana.
The Right to Information Campaign Group has given government a 10-day ultimatum to quickly pass the bill or face jail. According to a member of the group, Samson Ladia Yenini, the passage of the bill is long overdue and needs urgent attention. He also explains the bill is critical in the fight against corruption in the country. Efwa Evans Jimmy reports.
This year marks 22 years since the Right to Information draft bill was drafted under the auspices of the Institute of Economic Affairs in 1996. It also marks 16 years since the executive arm of government in 2002 drafted the first RTI bill. This draft executive bill was subsequently reviewed in 2003, 2005 and 2007, but was never laid in Parliament until February 5th, 2010. Since then, the RTI bill has witnessed a series of failed promises to pass it from both the government of the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress. In 2012, the 2010 RTI bill lapsed and was relayed in 2016. In the final days of the sit Parliament, an effort led by Alban Bagbin, the then majority leader, to pass the legislation was not successful after objections were raised by the then minority NPP. According to the Right to Information Action Campaign Group, the recent pronouncement by the President on the 6th of March 2018 that the RTI bill will be laid before Parliament and passed before Parliament rises marks a new round of assurances by the government to fulfill its own promise to pass the RTI bill into law. The group says they are disappointed and can no longer wait. Samson Ladi Ayenene is a member of the group. He says our democracy is meaningless without clear legislation that regulates access to information held by government and public sector offices.
We have been at this as a country for nearly 2 decades. That is the reason. That is the urgency. We have been at it for nearly 2 decades. What a shame that we want to pass a law that will give the citizens the right to ask questions about how leaders use their taxes. And that is so difficult to do. You want to pass a law that will allow citizens in a particular assembly to ask the question, why has this hospital not been finished after it was started how many years ago? To give the citizens the power to say, this road which was done in my community, the rains have come, the road has been washed away. What exactly happened? To give them this power, our governments have been running away. I don't get it. What do they?
Now, electricity consumers will start seeing the benefits of tariff reduction beginning April 1. The PRC had announced early this month that the 17.5% reduction in tariff for residential users and 30% for commercial consumers will take effect from Thursday, March 15. But addressing journalists on Wednesday, Managing Director of ECG, Engineer Samuel Boachiapia, said the reduction will start reflecting on bills next month.
We operate with a billing cycle. So even for post-paid customers, those who are not on prepaid, you would consume until the end of the month or after a certain period before your meters will be read. And then your consumption is captured and the bills distributed. So you would notice when you get your March bill in April, our billing system would compute your consumption on pro rata basis. What you consumed earlier from 1st to 14th March will be based on the existing tariff. And then the next batch for the 2-week period from 15th to to 31st will also be on the other tariff. And that is what the bill will indicate clearly to you. Because our billing system is on this 28-day cycle, or because of the billing cycle, the prepayment systems have also been programmed in that way. And for that reason, we are saying that when you purchase units for the prepaid, your records will be there. And then on 1st April, when we are doing the computing, it will take that into account and credit you, and you see a reduction in whatever reduction that you deserve would reflect. And so it's a question of when do I see physically that reduction. But as for the implementation, the program is said that it will recognize it, and you would see the direct benefits from 1st April onwards.
Now, Ghana has recorded an increased percentage in the use of non-medical methods for abortion. Some of the methods including drinking of concoctions, inserting objects in the vagina, and drinking milk as well as coffee. The revelation was contained in a survey by the Ghana Statistical Service, the second such since 2007. This latest survey showed improvement in maternal health and also highlighted reduced fertility rates especially amongst rural women. Head of Operations and Logistics at the service, Felix Donkor, says though the reduction in fertility is welcoming news for Ghana, health experts must adopt innovative ways of educating women against resorting to unsafe methods of abortion.
If 10 years ago, at age 25, a woman will tell you, I have 6 children. Today, a woman at age 25 has about 2 or 1. So we used these blocks by striking the estimates. It's a rate, it's not absolute numbers. And now we've got to 3.9. So of course, if you have in mind of reducing fertility, one may say we've made remarkable improvement. but there is more room for improvement.
And then you also talked about controlling the population. Can we say that that can be done? Because the more we give birth, the children also give birth, and so population definitely will increase. What else can be done apart from saying that you're curtailing or reducing population?
If you reduce your population, or if a country is not recording a positive growth rate, that one also is a problem for the country. That's why US occasionally open the door for this US lottery to capture people in the labor force. Okay, so no matter what, the population will grow, but the rate at which it is growing is what one has to look at.
The non-medical usage in the abortion,
the non-medical
methods in abortion, what would you think, what would you suggest should be done by the health practitioners to reduce the numbers? We have 27.7%, if I remember.
It boils down to still education. Okay. It could be that people have been doing it without our knowledge. At least the survey has brought out some findings. So it is left to the family planning unit of the Ghana Health Service to pick it up. If at first the strategy was to educate women at the hospitals, they have to strategize, to come up with a new strategy of which they can get to the doorstep of the women.
Africania Mission advocates for African traditional religion says it will sue President Akufo-Addo if plans to build a national cathedral materialize. At a news conference in Accra, the group called the move by government to provide Christians a national monument a misplaced priority. They insist that government ought to pay attention to pressing national issues rather than fuel what they describe as religious divisiveness. There's more in the following report.
The traditional religious body says President Akufo-Addo's resolve to build a national cathedral amounts to acting as a public relations officer for Christians in the country. National Youth Chairman of the Africania Mission, Fafafwa Agboji Sewunu, said the government's direct involvement in the construction process is not only unfair to all other religious sects in the country, but also promotes what they describe as a new form of colonialism.
Under the cover of Christianity, so many atrocities were committed against Africans. The deterioration of our cultural values today can be blamed on Christianity. It is a big shame if after independence, African governments are still busily promoting colonial values, which were weapons the colonial masters used against us.
That's not all. The mission is outraged at the Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs for organizing a Christian pilgrimage to Israel at a time when they say Ghana has numerous chieftaincy disputes begging for his attention.
We are totally not happy with the current Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs for his first flagship project of organizing and funding so-called Ghanaian Christians to Israel. Meanwhile, we are faced with a lot of chieftaincy disputes. Chieftaincy institutions, when handled well, can catalyze the development agenda of Ghana.
For his part, the third spiritual leader of the mission, Osafo Okonfo Achu Gova, said the unavailability of a national cathedral is not the biggest problem facing the country. Hence, the construction of a national cathedral will only open the floodgates for similar demands by religious groups.
If we must go back to pick the very weapon that they use against us, will it benefit us? And another point is that is national cathedral the biggest problem for Ghana. We know how there are some schools without a school building. So should we use that money for building a national cathedral? Now, after building national cathedral, will the government build a national shrine for the traditional believers also? If we are moving like this, when shall we solve our problems?
The mission intends to take legal actions against the president should he fail to heed their calls not to construct a national cathedral. Charity Emil Bartels, Joy News, Accra.
An association called the Mobile Money Agents Advocacy Group is calling for protection of mobile money merchants in the country. Their concern comes on the back of the broad daylight robbery of a mobile money merchant on Tuesday at Taifa in Accra. The robbers bolted with an amount of 4,000 cedis, mobile phones and talk time. Massloc has more in this report.
Yesterday, when I came to my shop, when I finished sweeping here, then I decided to dust. I have some shoes here, so I decided to dust them. So my back was facing outside. So before I realized, I saw a man standing behind me, and he pulled out.
Wait, this was around what time?
It was almost 8 o'clock.
Just around this 8 o'clock.
Yes, yes.
And you were dusting the shoes, the shoes here.
Yes.
Okay.
So before I realized, I saw a man standing behind me. Then he pulled out a gun from his jacket, and he said I should bring out all my money. So I was shivering. So he said if I make noise, he will shoot me. So at the back, the money was inside my bag. So I showed him where the money is. So I said the money is in my bag. Then he said he dragged me inside my cage. Then he took the money. Then he took the phone from the charger. Then he took the money, and the gun was pointing at me. If I make noise, he will shoot me. Then he came out. Then sit on the motor. Then they drove away.
Wow. So I'm told there were 2 people.
Yes, there were 2. One was sitting on the motor, and the other one was here.
As you just heard from Adobia, she's a mobile money merchant here. She was attacked yesterday at gunpoint just around 8 o'clock a.m. This place is very busy. You have a lot of tourists using this stretch to the central business district. There are some shops directly opposite us. They were also open for business yesterday when the incident happened. Unfortunately, they couldn't apprehend, the armed robbers. Now let's speak to some members of a group calling itself the Mobile Money Advocacy Group.
Yeah, mobile money agents, we are seriously under attack of armed robbers. Day in, day out, we are being attacked. And my concern is that if the government or our telcos, that's the telecommunication agency, can do something to help us, because our life is at stake here. We have to go and get the money ourselves to operate. It's just the network and the SIMs that we are getting from our telcos, the companies, the telecommunication companies. So if they cannot do anything to help us, or the government cannot help us with any security, I don't see it. Means we have to close the shops and then stay at home, not doing anything, not doing any job. Yes, because just last week, and this thing has been on each and every day, you hear something. Just last week at Legon, somebody was stabbed, and the money was made away with. That guy has to go to the... And with all that, nobody gives you anything, nobody pays you anything. So I think they have to help us.
I'm really begging for the government to come to our aid, because we use our money to operate. Nobody is rescuing us. The telcos, the government, whoever it is, they don't care about us. Our safety is at risk as well too. So I'm really begging the government for him to just come to our aid. Whatever measures he can just put in place to help us, I think he should just at least think about us too.
And in the airline's, former Kokobo chief executive charged with 27 counts of causing financial loss to the state, with his trial set to begin this Friday. He's charged alongside the chief executive of Agricult Ghana Limited, Alhaji Seydou Adongo, known more for his Class Media Group. But some members of the NDC minority in Parliament have described the charges as a diversionary tactic by the Kufuor-led government. Yet another corruption scandal. The sister-in-law of the chief executive of the National Lottery Authority has been implicated in the award of questionable contracts. She, however, insists she went through due process. Corn flour linked with the deaths of 6 persons in the Volta region town of Akakpo Copper said to have contained a pesticide that could kill when ingested. In business, Institute of Energy Security dismisses Bosch's position that it did not err by selling a parcel of crude oil to an unlicensed energy company. And Ashaman MP calls for the scrapping of the Procurement Ministry after the sector minister parried questions directed to her about the award of a contract for the procurement of some 1,800 vehicles.